Hey there, welcome back to my channel. Today I will be scraplifting the amazing and talented Nancy Damiano. I admire all of her bright and clean work. This layout is one of her older scrapbook layouts, and I've been following and admiring her work for a very long time. And I knew I wanted to recreate one of her beautiful layouts. So here are some of her design key elements to watch out for. Nancy's colorful enamel dot pattern, bright colored papers, a big gold paper clip, a flare button, find like embellishments, green paint splatters, a date stamp, and an embellishing rolling stamp and a journaling block. Now there are some differences. Hers is an 8.5 by 11 and I will be using a 12 by 12. And I don't own the July Scraptastic kit of that year, but I will be using my own paper and embellishments to mimic her layout. So we're going to go ahead and get started. Okay, I'm using a 12 by 12 white piece of cardstock, and I will be using this Shake It Chic paper pad from Craftsmart. These are one of the paper pads that I got from Michaels, and I don't have the papers that she used because it was from a kit, from the Scraptastic July kit of that year, but I'm going to be using this paper pad, and I like the bright colors and the pastels, and so I figured it'd be perfect to use for this summer spread. So I'm just cutting off a little bit up the top, trying to kind of use that guideline that she has on the top, and I find that it's a little too much for me, so I go ahead and trim it and trim the sides as well, just so that it wouldn't be short and it would, have coverage all the way across. And here is my 4x6 picture that I matted on white cardstock. And on her layout, she actually typed on her page, but because I do not have a 12 by 12 printer, I went ahead and used a trick of mine that I just print on clear sticker paper and print on that, and I used it the landscape way and journaled my my story onto the clear sticker paper. And then I printed it and trimmed it to fit underneath my picture. And here I am trying to figure out the placement of my picture, my spread. And here I'm taking out two pages from the paper pad that I find will go well. Nancy used on one of her cards, they look like 3x4 cards, and one has like a polka dot pattern, and so I figured I'd use something. I don't have anything polka dot, but I do have this speckled one, and I figured that it kind of gives it that same type of look. And I wanted to pull in some of the turquoise green into it as well, so I will go ahead and trim this paper as well to back that splattered paper and give it another little pop of color. Go ahead and try to place it. So I'm just trying to figure out the size of the second piece of cardstock that I want to be placed behind the speckled piece of cardstock. And I kind of want it a little shorter and place a little bit above the speckled one, and try to keep it a little bit higher than the picture itself as well, just so that it doesn't look that it's floating. So it kind of gives it like some kind of foundation. So here I'm ready to commit to the top piece. I feel that it's wide enough to go across, and I go ahead and use my Tombow adhesive and go ahead and adhere that top piece. And then I'm ready to adhere my journaling. So I go ahead and take off the backing, and I'm ready to commit to the journaling. Now this part right here, it's a hit and miss with this, because I always fear that it's going to be crooked, and I try my best to center it. Now, you know, you can't always have things perfect, but you can try your best to keep it as straight as you can, if you know what I mean. Here I'm ready to add my enamel dots. Now I don't have the same color enamel dots that Nancy had, but I did have these. They're like enamel dots, and they're in the pretty pastel colors that work perfect with the colors of the papers that I'm using. So I'm just using, and since I am using a 12 by 12 page, I felt that my dots needed to be spread a little bit further away from each other just because I have more white. I do have a bigger page to work on. So I know Nancy used hers and they were like closely together. So here I'm just using a pencil and just gently marking the placement, because I like the placement of the way that they're placed on the sheet. So I kind of, you know, put in little markers of where they were and kind of went across with the ruler and just gently marked where I wanted them. So, oh, and then Nancy did use some stitching. She did use some stitching with her sewing machine, and she did a grid. And I do own a sewing machine, but I don't know how to use it. I keep telling myself that I need to learn how to use it. And I could have hand stitched this, but just at the time while I was doing this, I didn't have the time to hand stitch because it would have taken a while to hand stitch. So I just did it freely, and as you can see, I'm having a little trouble trying to keep these dots in line. So I did struggle a little bit. I did the best that I could. I know that they're not straight, but again, you know, sometimes you can't always have your things always perfect, so I'm okay with that. I do apologize. My pup is in the room, and you can probably hear him panting because he was running around the house, and so he always wants to be close to Mama. So I apologize for the panting in the background. So yeah, I'm just here trying to keep these little enamel dots as straight as I can, and in the colors that I want them in. I did take the darkest color from the top and then just went, you know, lighter towards the bottom. So, and then I just repeated the color pattern once I got to the end of the green, and then I just repeated it. So here I'm just adhering these little enamel dots or bubbles or whatever you want to call them. The packaging actually just says stickers. I did purchase these at the Dollar Tree store. They're just ones that I had on hand. I have enamel dots, but they didn't go with these papers, and so I figured I'd use what I have on hand. And yeah, I think it worked well. They were big enough to fill up the paper, and I just went ahead and just went with it. So I'm ready to commit to that, and I just gently push down, and then I go with my white eraser and I just gently erase my pencil mark so that there's no markings on my paper. Okay, so I think I'm happy with the way they look, and so now I'm going to get ready to place my picture. But first I have to adhere the two pieces of the two cards that go on the side. And so I'm ready to adhere the first one, which is the blue-green, and I just add some adhesive to that, and I use my picture to give me an idea of how I want to layer the first one. So I put the speckled in that one down just to give me an idea of how I want the other one placed. And I do want a little bit showing to the right and a little bit showing from the top, so that it gives me, just so that the picture doesn't look like it's floating, and it gives it some kind of base. So then I went ahead and adhered both of them, and now I'm adding some pop-up dimensional tape to put on my picture, just so that it gives it a little bit of depth and height to the picture. And hoping that when I do put it in my scrapbook, it doesn't get smushed down. So I'm going to go ahead and place it here. And gently just push down. And so far, so good. I feel like it's finally coming together. I will be using the Coastline Fiskars, and they're pretty pink and this pretty metallic silver, almost holographic looking. And I will be spilling out Goodtimes. So what I like to do is I like to put my first alpha and my last alpha, just so that it gives me an idea of how close I need to put the letters in between for spacing purposes. Because I find if I do it one by one, I'm usually always off. But if I do it this way, it usually always works for me. So just a little tip there for you. I'm noticing that I'm having a little trouble with the alpha stickers, just because it's a little, I should have adhered my journaling a little lower. I just didn't want it too low, because I did want to put some paint splatters on the bottom, and I do remember that I have to add a date stamp, so I just didn't want it too low and I didn't want it too high. So sometimes that happens, but I did manage to have all the alphas put together, and I did end up spelling Goodtimes. And then I go on to the next embellishment, which is the paper clip. These are actually from American Crafts, and I really like these paper clips. It's actually my first one that I'm using, so I'm using what I have on hand. I like the placement of the paper clip, and here I'm just going to add a flare, and I find a flare here that I have, and I actually place the flare right there, and it's a cute little flare with flamingos. I didn't have one that said fun, but I figured it went with my picture, because they are in the pool and there's floaties, and it just reminds me, and it's very summery, so I just went ahead and added the little flamingo. There is pops of pink in both the enamel dots and on the paper. So now I'm looking for something to put on the top of the flare, and these are actually die cuts from Michaels, from the Recollections brand. It is the Memory Explosion box die cuts, and so I'm just gently going through those and seeing what works. Now Nancy had fun chipboard stickers, and I didn't have those chipboard stickers, so I figured I'd just pull this one out, and it is kind of rainbow, and it's very pastel-like, and I felt like they went with the little bubble stickers on the left side, so I went ahead and added that. It says best day ever. Now I'm ready to move on to the paint splatters. Now I really need to get me some mist. I know there's other products out there that helps you with this, but I haven't gone out to buy any, so I'm just having to use what I have, and these are just watercolor paints that I picked up at Michael's. So I'm just using the green, just kind of to pull the green that's in the little bubble stickers to the left. And so I've only, I've used this technique a couple of times, but I'm not really good at it. I just wanted to make sure that I covered my picture so I wouldn't get the paint splatters on my picture and ruin my picture. So yeah, I did my best to do a little bit of green splatters there. I didn't realize that I needed to add my date stamp at the bottom and a little embellishment in my journaling block. So I do add that at the very end, and at least I caught it. And here is the final, my final layout compared to Nancy's. Here's the side-by-side view. It doesn't look identical, of course, because I did have to add some different elements because my page was bigger and papers are different, colors are different, but I kind of try to mimic the same layout. I hope you give this layout a try. It was fun recreating Nancy's layout. I hope you enjoyed watching. Don't forget to subscribe and hit that bell for notifications. See you guys in the next video. Bye!